Good morning from Copenhagen Airport. I've just arrived by train here to Terminal 3 and now heading over to Terminal 2, which is a fairly short walk. And the reason for that is that I need a corona test for today's flight, which will be bringing us to New York, which is a brand new route. So we will be flying with 𝐤𝐤𝐤 Airlines, a Icelandic low-cost carrier, and their inaugural flight today from Keflavik, Reykjavik to New York Stewart International. So I'm definitely looking forward to see what the airline has to offer and what it will be like to travel to New York via Stewart International. So just got my test done, now waiting for the results. Knock on wood, of course it will be negative, but still, yeah, leftovers of the pandemic, well, it's important to get done, so yeah. So once the corona test was done and of course came back negative, it was time to check in my luggage. And here I actually experienced the first positive thing, because at Copenhagen Airport at least, the airline has manned check-in counters, something even the big European legacy carriers don't shy away from cutting away from their economy passengers, where they force them to leave their luggage with automated machines and add the luggage tags themselves. Here I was pleasantly surprised to be able to simply give my piece of luggage to a real person who then took care of everything for me. Very nice. And with that, it was time to head over to the security check, which at Copenhagen often can be a nightmare, but luckily today it was very calm and I managed to get through within a few minutes. Alright, so we have passed through security, we have checked in our luggage, and we got our corona test. So we are pretty much ready to go, but of course still waiting for our gate. Now, 𝐤𝐤𝐤 Airlines is a relatively new Icelandic airline. The business model is fairly simple, as the low-cost carrier connects various European cities with Keflavik, from where passengers can then connect onwards to various East Coast destinations in the US. Sounds familiar? Well, you're probably not the only one. I guess for many, the airline is pretty much the spiritual successor to WOW Air, although it is of course a completely new and separate airline. And so I was ready for the first stint of the journey, bringing us from Copenhagen to Reykjavik, Keflavik. With that, hello and welcome on board this Airbus A320neo of 𝐤𝐤𝐤 Airlines. First impression of the cabin? Nice and bright, modern looking, as you would expect it from a brand new A320. The cabin on board this aircraft is very typical for a low-coster, a one-class economy cabin. The seating itself is quite alright. It should definitely be sufficient for a few hours on board, although I'm quite curious to see how a longer flight will be with this type of seating. The seat pitch, however, is excellent, and as a reference I should mention that I am 182 centimeters tall. And of course the seat itself offers the typical storage space that you could expect from this type of seats. So with all that practical stuff out of the way, we should be ready for our first flight, bringing us to Iceland.
The in-flight entertainment system of Play Airlines has been kept to a bare minimum because it doesn't exist. So you have to find your own way to kill the time. If you're really bored, you could, for example, read the brochure which shows you which items you can purchase if you are hungry or thirsty. But I think we will keep that for the next flight. Or you could look out the window, or if you're very adventurous, you could take a nap. In all fairness, however, it must also be said that on a 2-hour flight an IFE would probably be a bit overkill, and most passengers will probably have taken something with them to entertain them on the flight to Iceland. And just like that, we landed in Reykjavik, 𝐭𝐴𝐺𝐿𝐴𝐵, and even a little bit ahead of time.
Alright, so let's see what the airport has to offer, and let's see if we can find our connection flight to New York.
Most, if not all, North American destinations are handled from the gates at Keflavik Airport, and all gates are pretty much reachable within a few minutes. So the airport is really making it simple and easy for passengers to reach their connection flights. And while there are many airports that have their main business area with connecting passengers, it also has to be said that there aren't many airports that do it just as well as Keflavik Airport. So I'm on my way to my gate now and have just passed the passport control. But this place looks abandoned. Where is everybody? Well, it just turns out that because we landed early, we are ahead of the main traffic wave, so this place should get much busier very shortly. Especially also because we are now coming to today's main event. Now, the flight to New York's Stewart International Airport is actually the inaugural flight for Play Airlines. And traditions are traditions, and that of course means a little bit of a party around the gate area. So cake, drinks and flags. But before I lose myself in the various offerings, let's get on board and let's see what this aircraft has to offer. And also on board this Airbus A321neo of Play Airlines, the interior seems bright, modern and welcoming. But there are some noticeable differences from this cabin to the cabin we experienced in the previous flight on board an A320neo from Play Airlines. Of course, also here we have a one-class, all-economy cabin, but the seats do seem to have a little bit more padding, and most noticeably, there are some headrests, which of course is very much appreciated on the long flight over the pond. And it did also not pass my attention that the aircraft features some overhead screens, so perhaps some form of IFE is featured on this aircraft. And also here the seat pitch is quite frankly excellent and perhaps even better than on our previous flight. And again, as a quick reminder, I'm 182 centimeters tall. But now I really can't wait any longer. So let's go to America. after we got up into the air, the overhead screens came down, and while they for a while simply showed water underneath the aircraft, after a little while the air show began, and that basically revealed why the cabin of this aircraft is different to the aircraft we had on the first flight. And that is because this aircraft started its life with the now defunct Mexican airline Interjet. Now, the only reason why I mentioned this is simply because there are these small differences in the cabin. But frankly, the cabin on this A321neo with a previous life with Interjet is a little bit better than the standard cabin of Play Airlines. So apart from the free air show, it is the same procedure as with the last flight. You have to make sure that you have something for your own entertainment, as the airline won't even provide you with Wi-Fi, which I actually found to be quite surprising given how young and fresh the airline likes to portray itself as. But one thing the airline will provide you with, and that is something to eat and drink, if you pay for it. Now, what you see here is a meal deal for 12 euros and an additional still water for 1 euro. So that will already set you back with 13 euros. Or would you like to have a gin and tonic? That will be an additional 10 euros. Now, Play Airlines is of course a low-cost carrier, and the concept of having to purchase your meals and drinks on board an aircraft is not new, so this is of course fair game. But there's also a silver lining here, because there's one thing the airline really can't charge you for, and that are the views that only a flight over Greenland provides. While we enjoy this absolutely stunning show only the nature of Greenland can provide us, there is one thing I would like to talk about, and that is actually our destination. Now, most airlines operating international flights to New York will choose Newark or JFK as their base of operations, but Play Airlines has chosen the very little known Stewart International in upstate New York. But why is that? Well, the good thing is I managed to talk with the airline's CEO during the festivities at the gate, so let's hear what he had to say about just that.
I mean, we are a low-cost airline, so our position in the market is to offer the lowest fares possible. In order to be able to do that, you need to have a low-cost base, and we analyzed the market. We found this airport. It has actually a strong international track record, and Norwegian flew there and did that quite successfully. And we just saw that we could offer the right kind of prices to the airport. It's underserved. There's no international connection out of it. The catchment area is big. There's millions of people that live around it, and we took the chance, and we don't regret it, because we see great responses and great demand for the airport, especially from the US side, mostly Americans actually.
Now, if you would like to see the full interview with Birger Jonsson, the CEO of Play Airlines, then you can find it right here on the channel Travel Plus Loyalty, but we will of course also leave a link to it in the video description below. And with that, our descent into Stewart International Airport has begun, which leaves me with my final thoughts on this trip. Play Airlines does not revolutionize the airline market, but they do what any good low-coster does. They offer a very low base price for your ticket, but any additional services you will have to pay for. You would like to reserve a seat while booking your ticket, you'll have to pay for it. You would like to have hand luggage or checked-in luggage, you will have to pay for it. But of course, none of that is surprising for a low-cost carrier. The big advantage for the passengers with choosing Stewart International Airport as Play Airlines' destination in New York is frankly that it is the only international airline coming into the airport, which means immigration should work a treat compared to the big and overwhelmed airports Newark and JFK. But after having passed immigration, there will also be a 2-hour bus drive waiting for you to reach Manhattan, which most likely will be the final destination for most, if not all, passengers coming from Europe. One thing is for sure, the offering of Play Airlines will not be the right one for every single passenger. Especially business travelers, I can't really see having any advantages choosing Play. But there are a great many for which Play Airlines could be a nice alternative when traveling to New York. And more alternatives for travelers is always good. Now, if you like this type of content and would like to see more of it here on the channel, then feel free to leave a like, and of course, if you are new around here, you're always welcome to hit subscribe. I've been Christoph from Bongo Planes, and on behalf of Travel Plus Loyalty and Inside Flyer, thank you for having watched this video.